Hello and good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the fourth of the EABA Summer School. I'm delighted to present to you Janet Twyman. Uh, she has a long list of credentials. I'm not going to go into that. If you do not know her, you are not really a behavior analyst. It's as simple as that. Former president of EABA and president of I don't know how many other businesses and all over, an inventor and a very dear friend of mine. Please welcome Janet.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Razmi, and thank you, EABA, for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be giving you got your final session of the summer school session. I hear it's been a great success so far. The presentations I've seen have been phenomenal. And so we're going to jump right into this last one. We have a lot to cover in our brief time together. And I'm going to kind of put in the heart of summer school because having spent most of my life in and around public education, we always worry about the summer slide. And often in summer, we spend the time catching up on things that we should know really well, have heard about, but maybe want to explore a little bit more. So that's what we're going to do. And also being a behavior analyst, instructional designer, teacher, I really firmly believe in active learner responding, or I really want some audience participation. So even though we have over 100 people live on this virtual meeting, I'm still going to look for a lot of active responding. So you're going to use your chat a lot. Razmi and Corola's mics will be off, and so they're going to be able to do some of the choral responding. But I would love for you guys to choral respond, even if you're sitting alone in a room or have other people around you. If you can still speak out when we have those times, I think that would be great, because as we know, the more active the the more active the participation, the more learning that happens. So my very, very first active response I'm going to be looking for is, what do you guys think it takes to be a superhero? Or what is a superhero power that you would like to have? And it can be realistic or totally imaginary. It can be like energy manipulation, being able to control forms of energy like light or heat or things like that. It can be being able to be invisible, whatever it may be. So if you guys can, courage comes in as one of them. Thank you, Andrea, for getting the first response in there. What do you think it takes to be a superhero? Love. I love these. These are nice, positive ones. Anything else? Razmir Corolla? What's it take to be a superhero? Passion, compassion, collaboration.
You've got to know behavior analysis.
Behavior analysis. Did you get a sneak peek at my talk? Because I agree with Razmi in that we all have some superpowers, or we all can be superheroes because we all know about and apply the science of behavior. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this teacher. I'm calling her Maya. Maya's actually not real, but she could be any of us. She was an exceptional teacher. She was an experienced special education teacher, yet she knew her students had potential. Yet recently, over the past few days or past few months and years, she spent a lot of her days putting out fires, literally tracking who threw what, who was crying in the hallway, which homework sheets got left in her bag, and she was exhausted. She cared deeply, but nothing seemed to be working with her students. And then Maya came across a flyer and she signed up for an EABA workshop on a technique called active student responding. And that was the moment that she encountered one of her very first superpowers. Her own behavior change started by using choral responding throughout the day. It wasn't flashy, but suddenly her kids were engaged. She didn't need to raise her voice, and she felt like she was teaching again. So Maya, she used one of the superpowers. She started asking more frequent questions, using response cards. The chaos in the room got quieter. Students made eye contact. There was more learning, fewer disruptions. And it's because over time, Maya learned her 7 superpowers. And these are the 7 superpowers that we're going to cover today. Again, most of you know these already. We're going to do a little bit of a refresher. We're going to take a deeper dive or show you opportunities on taking a deeper dive on some of these. But these are some of the 7 superpowers that all behavior analysts have the potential to use. So don't forget, we're going to use your participation. The foundational superpower, this kind of essential superpower that permeates behavior analysis, is reinforcement. And we know that reinforcement, we can increase motivation, we can get high rates of reinforcement and get more behavior, stronger behaviors, behavior over time. We know reinforcement itself is a process. And it's a process where a stimulus change increases the future probability of a response. And that's so important to remember that reinforcement is a process. I'm going to go over it again and then distinguish it from positive reinforcers, because positive reinforcers are the things, the stimuli, the activities that also immediately follow the desired behavior and results in that increased probability of the behavior occurring again. So reinforcement is a foundational superpower for behavior analysts. And Maya uses reinforcement with her students all the time, so much that she knows and has taught them that these critical features of positive reinforcement especially is that it's immediate, it's contingent upon the behavior that you want, and that reinforcers themselves are individualized, right? So we know a lot about reinforcement already. And like I said, this is kind of summer school, a little bit of a refresher. We know that there are types and kinds, if you want to call them, of reinforcers. There are conditioned reinforcers, which are learned, or some people call them primary reinforcers. We know that there are unconditioned reinforcers that are not learned or not taught to be reinforced, or they may be secondary reinforcers. A person may acquire a preference for secondary reinforcers. A lot of us do, for money or things like that. But also with reinforcers, and get ready because we're going to start to do some active responding in just a second. In behavior analysis, we talk about the schedule of reinforcement. And we have fixed schedules of reinforcement and variable schedules of reinforcement. And when we talk about fixed schedules, we talk about being reinforced on kind of a frequency, an event, every X occurrence. And when we talk about variable reinforcement, we talk about not every occurrence, but on some average number of occurrences, like every third, every 10th. We can also talk about ratios versus intervals, the number of reinforcers versus time, the time to reinforcement. So those are 4 concepts regarding schedules of reinforcement that we all should be very, very familiar with. So I'm going to do a quick maintenance check. So you guys are going to type into the chat the abbreviation. So for example, if the question is, or if the behavior is, place a check mark on each correct response, you would type into the chat FR1 because it's a fixed ratio 1. It's every response and it's each response. And so it's every one. So it's an FR1, or some of us can type CRF for continuous schedule of reinforcement, but you're going to type it in the chat. And I just saw the note. So yes, so you guys will have the recording. There's a note in there about slides available. Absolutely. You'll have the recording. Immediately after the presentation, I'm emailing Behavior Live a PDF of the slides, so you'll have all of that. And you will see I have a resource list for folks. A QR code is going to come up repeatedly, and that resource list will be available on the Behavior Live site. So you guys will have access to everything. So going back to our activity, I'm going to now post the behavior. You guys are going to type in the chat what schedule of reinforcement you think it is. Ready? Patting someone on the arm an average of every 3 minutes. What schedule of reinforcement do you guys think that is? Love it. We're getting responses in there. Got a first one, got a couple. Keep responding. That is excellent. Just for the matter of time, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the answer. All you VI3s, variable interval 3s, nice job. We're going to move on to the next behavior. I know there's going to be a little bit of transition time, but 10 minutes of music for every 5 pages completed. So completing 5 pages of a workbook or reading a passage or whatever it may be, you earn 10 minutes of music. What do you guys think that one is? Love it. You guys are starting to change your responses. If you put FR5, you were right. Very nice. Most of you guys are doing that. And again, if you guys are scanning the chat, there's some holdover from the previous response. How about this one? A token for each 7 minutes of staying in seat. Stay in your seat for 7 minutes, you get a token. Nice. You guys are switching over. Everybody to put FI7. It's an interval, minutes, right? And it's every 7, so it's fixed. Excellent job. Praising the group for each correct response. Each correct answer, the teacher's praising the entire group. What do you guys think that one is?
Det continuous.
I hear you, Razmi. Razmi says continuous schedule reinforcement, a CRF or an FR1. Exactly. All right. And last one. Okay. How about this one? Getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. Getting your paycheck every 2 weeks. What do you guys think on this one? Waiting to see some responses switch over. I really, truly appreciate how you guys are participating in the chat. It really, really makes a difference. So thank you. So yeah, you guys are right. Getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. It's an interval schedule, right? And it's every 2 weeks. So it's a fixed interval too. Really nice. So that's just a quick refresher on schedules of reinforcement. You guys did beautifully. Again, we're just kind of reactivating, remembering some of those things that we learned before. Some of those things are just naturally part of that reinforcement superpower that I hope everyone already has. Just want to remind you, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Keller and Schoenberg wrote an entire book on schedules of reinforcement. And in Cooper, Heron, and Heward, we and all of our other research and materials, we talk about compound schedules. Don't know about alternative schedules or yoke schedules. There's a lot more that you can learn to add your superpower. A lot of times we use differential schedules of reinforcement, and we use reinforcement in shaping and tag procedures, behavioral momentum, extinction procedures rely on reinforcement or understanding reinforcement. So does satiation. So we talk about reinforcement as being foundational, but just know it's foundational to a whole broad array of things that are important in our science. So really, really nice. And so I'm going to go on this is the end of superpower 1. After every superpower, I'm just going to show you a research slide to remind us that behavioral analysis is an evidence-based field. It's an evidence-based science. And all of these 7 superpowers have a wealth of empirical research demonstrating their importance. And this one is just an EABA reversal and maintenance design, demonstrating the importance or the effects of reinforcement. That when behavior is contingently reinforced, it increases. And when it's not reinforced, it actually decreases. This is from the very first journal of applied behavior analysis, the very, very first issue back in 1968. All right, Maya. Let's go back to Maya. So she started rewarding the right thing. She started building momentum, and she also realized something else. Her students wanted to do well. They just always weren't sure when they were doing well. So she started catching small successes, giving specific praise, saying things like, I love how you started right away, really identifying the target behavior. And her learners lit up. Engagement went up, struggles went down. And as we know, as she learned, the more we reinforce the behavior we want, the more we get what we want. Second superpower, planned ignoring. We know planned ignoring is calmly reducing disruptive behavior with differential reinforcement. Planned ignoring only works if attention is the reinforcer. And for all of our organisms, human and non-human, attention is actually a very, very powerful reinforcer. We may not know it as much or see it as much with some of our learners, but it is a very, very powerful reinforcer. So planned ignoring itself occurs when contingent upon the occurrence of an inappropriate the opportunity to earn social reinforcers is removed. So attention or other social reinforcers is taken away. So I'm going to just show you guys a quick video illustrating this for a problem behavior. I want you guys to look at it, think about what's maintaining or what maintained this behavior. And then I'm going to jump over here to the behavior live screen and see if I can play. All right. So I think we've got it. What do you guys think is maintaining the behavior? I'm sure you guys have an idea that attention, the child's basically crying, seems to be in distress, but following the parent around and making sure the parent can see them when they're crying. So yep, attention, maintaining the behavior. I personally love how the dog is following the mom around room to room, like, get me away from this toddler. Anyway, yes, planned ignoring considerations. Just really briefly, a lot of times we can do a functional assessment if we identify attention or social reinforcers as the consequence maintaining the behavior. We can think about planned ignoring as a potential treatment, a potential treatment to use. We always have to consider the effects of planned ignoring, like extinction or extinction bursts. We have to consider the safety of the individual. And mostly if we're using planned ignoring, we really have to simultaneously use this differential attention. We have to catch them being good. During a planned ignoring procedure, reinforce the other students that are behaving appropriately, or your other clients or other learners, or as soon as the target learner is behaving any aspect of appropriate behavior, reinforce that, provide attention to that. So use a lot of differential attention. And then just to show you some data from that, from superhero number 2, here's some data. I think this is from 2000, but I really like this one because they used an assessment to determine, gosh, my eyes are so bad right here, to determine attention maintained behavior, and showed how differential reinforcement or differential attention, which was a reinforcer, changed the frequency of the target behavior or the behavior set for decrease, right? So again, a wealth of research on all of these superpowers. And Maya, she had a student named Jordan who just seemed to live for attention, whether it was negative, positive, what she thought was negative or positive, it didn't matter. If someone looked at him or laughed, it was game on. So after previously trying pleading with him, correcting him, none of that worked. And so she tried planned ignoring. And so when Jordan threw a classic attention-seeking one-liner, Maya kept calmly teaching. No lecture, no reaction, and it worked. So ignoring with attention, we have to remember, it's not neglect, it's not paying attention, it's differential attention. It's teaching what will get the behavior that you want and putting on extinction or decreasing what does not. All right, number 3, we're moving right along, you guys. Clear antecedents. This topic is huge. And again, like reinforcement, we're going to barely touch the surface. But in this one especially, I hope to open your eyes and open your thinking to maybe some areas around antecedent control that we don't talk about a lot, or that are really powerful. And yes, of course, we are science that focuses on contingencies, and we really look at the consequence to change behavior, and that is absolutely true. But antecedents, clear antecedents, have an impact as well. So here's going to be a tough one. You may or may not have a piece of paper. You may or may not have a drawing app on your the device that you're using. If you want to kind of see if you can grab a piece of paper real quick. Razmi, you guys are there at home. Maybe you can play along, but I'm going to deliver some antecedents, and I want to see what you guys come up with. If you can't draw, this is going to sound crazy for a behavior analyst to say, but try to do some conditioned seeing, do some visualization in your brain about what's happening here. So very first thing, on a piece of paper or another drawing surface, on the top half of the page, draw a semicircle. And I really, really hope some of you folks are doing this. Top half of the page, draw a semicircle. The bottom half of the semicircle is open. I am going to move through these quickly because you guys are highly vocal verbal learners, and also we don't have a lot of time. Number 2, below that semicircle, a longer flattened circle. Hope you guys are doing this. Wide and big enough at the top of the flat circle to touch the bottom of the semicircle. Okay, I'm going to move on. Draw a straight horizontal line through that flattened circle. All the instructions are up there if you need to catch up. On the left side of the original semicircle, that very first semicircle, draw an upside down U on the left side. The bottom tips should touch that flat circle. Keep going. Okay. I'm going to give you a few seconds to catch up in case you need it. If the other people are kind of doing some conditioned seeing, using just your brain and not paper, just try to follow along.
I think you should give us.
Repeat drawing another upside down U on the right side of that original semicircle. Draw a small circle in the middle, in the inside of each of those upside down U's. So you should have 2. You're drawing them above that flattened circle. And then very, very quickly color in those 2 small circles. All right. On the left side, outside of the original semicircle, draw a C. Repeat that on the right side. So you're going to draw a C, but on the right side, draw the C backwards. And draw a wide V inside the top half of the semicircle. Color in that wide V. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes. All right. I'm going to pop over to look at video real quick. And I don't think you guys are on video anymore. I was going to ask if you wanted to show your picture. If anybody wants to show what they've drawn, because I want to know, did you guys get this? Is this what you guys got, Razmi and family?
I don't know if you can see it here, but
hold on, I'm jumping back over. Not bad. Not bad at all. Look at you guys. What a talented family. You're under good instructional control.
verbal instruction.
Yeah. So, those of you that are playing along, that got to draw, hopefully you got this or something close to it. But if you didn't, why or why not? That was all antecedent directions, all things we think that were in your repertoire, but there's something that would have improved it. I could have confirmed that all of those shapes were in your repertoire, that you knew left or right, top half, bottom half, flattened. There was a lot of vocabulary in that I needed to make sure that you guys were under the control of before I introduced it. I should make sure that the behavior is actually in your response. Just because you can recognize a semicircle doesn't mean you can draw a semicircle. And I have to perhaps for some folks provide models or provide prompts. But if I use those prompts, I need to fade them as soon as possible. I probably should have just checked for accuracy after each step or even components within each step, right? And then confirm that you guys were ready before moving on. Right? So lots of things that happen around antecedent control. So if you want to have some nice, and I'm talking about antecedent control broadly right now, but if you want to have good antecedent control, make sure the behavior's in your learner's repertoire, make sure it's under that appropriate antecedent stimulus control, and provide models and prompts if needed, but fade them. All right. I love your comments in the chat. Really, really nice. So just remember, even though we tend to focus on consequences, we do know antecedents are important. They influence behavior. And that can be anything from the environmental preparation, setting events. Hold on, I'm going to cough. Excuse me. Establishing operations, motivating operations, abolishing operations, all of this is under that antecedent domain, that first box when we think about the three-term contingency. Non-contingent reinforcement and then increasing high probability requests can then morph into an antecedent procedure. We know about verbal antecedents, rules, contingency specifying stimuli. We know about prompting. We may not know as much about priming, and there's a whole wealth of knowledge around instructional stimulus control. But just to go back, just in terms of simple behaviors that we can do, we want to have clear vocal verbal antecedents. We want to say what we want to see, not what we just saw or not what we don't want. We need to often with some of our learners whose vocal verbal repertoire might not be as established, use a lot of first then statements, first do 5 problems, then free time. Okay. When I gave you that very quick list of antecedents, I talked about priming and prompting. We're going to delve into that very, very quickly, just for a couple minutes. Right here, what do you guys think? You can type in the chat, or Razmi and Corolla, you can say out loud. What do you think the answer is to the question at the bottom of the left side of the page? And the figure at the right, the line AC, is a...
Diagonal.
Phew, very good. Yes, diagonal. Again, folks in the chat, I know we got the answer, but you can look at it. So let me just ask you, did you need all of that information, Razmi and family, to answer that question? Or could you have answered that question with this? If you were just given this, what would you put in the blank?
Yeah, the same. Diagonal.
Yeah, the same, diagonal. Because all of these other pieces, that explanation at the beginning, the definitional piece, the drawing, those are all the things that we wanted the behavior to come under control of, but it wasn't. The behavior was under control of these extraneous prompts. And we learn about this, and the folks interested in behavior analysis and instructional design, if you haven't already, you'll soon learn about something called the blackout technique by Jim Holland. Holland and Skinner wrote the programmed instruction textbook. So it's the same Jim Holland. And this blackout technique originated from research in programmed instruction back in the 1960s. And it's a method for determining to the extent, the degree to which words in programmed instruction or diagrams in programmed instruction were response contingent or stimuli contingent versus truly programmed. So basically, they kept running through this thing where they would draw a crayon or black out or draw a magic marker over all the words in a programmed instruction frame that they thought were extraneous, right? And distilled it down to the essential stimulus control that would control the response. So we found out that a lot of the prompting, a lot of the explanation that we do in teaching and in programmed instruction frames wasn't necessary. So we tried to move towards this lean instruction, right? Here's another example. And this example, this is about response alternatives, because in prompting, we often want to restrict response alternatives. When we're prompting somebody to wash their hands, a full physical hand-over-hand prompting, we don't want them to, let's say, splash the soap around or splash the water or open the medicine cabinet door. We're doing this hand-over-hand prompting to restrict those response alternatives to the behavior that we can reinforce. Hand under faucet, reinforce. Rub hands together, reinforce. So often our prompts actually, often, I will say again, our prompts are restricting response alternatives. But we don't always want to restrict response alternatives to get behavior under stimulus control. We want to actually prime the relationship between the stimuli and the response, not restrict all the alternatives, make the stimulus response relationship stronger. So here's some examples of response prompting that restricts prompt alternatives. This first prompt, Pegasus had to blank. So all of a sudden, this prompt is already restricting our response to all plural nouns because of the syntax of the sentence in the word to. Or like a bird, Pegasus had to blank. Now we're restricting response alternatives to plural nouns relevant to birds. Or Pegasus had to blank, 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 like S. Now we've got all plural nouns related, all plural nouns with 4 letters before S, or all plural nouns with 4 letters before S relevant to birds, or like a bird, Pegasus had 2 W blank, blank, blank S. Now all of a sudden we're restricted by formal syntax and category. It has to be all plural words, 3 letters between W and S related to birds, right? That has nothing to do with the actual stimulus relationship we're trying to teach, and that is the critical features of Pegasus. So we prime the response, we're going to guide by relevant features. So here we're saying we're going to first have the learner determine the relevant features. Pegasus was a winged horse, circle Pegasus. So all of a sudden you've got to find all the images that are a horse and has wings. And the distractors share some common features, like the lion with wings, or a horse with a saddle and a blanket that might look like wings, or things like that. So basically, you do multiple trials, multiple opportunities to respond on this dimension, and then you can have the learner actively identify the relevant features. Circle what made Pegasus different from all the other horses. And what makes Pegasus different? The wings. So you're going to have lots of examples. You're going to vary the non-examples. You're going to vary the non-critical attributes, and you're also going to vary the critical attributes, but make sure they're always present. And so what made Pegasus different? What was it? Wings. You're doing different response modalities. You're going to provide lots of example, non-example practice, where you're circling all the Pegasus and Xing out the non-Pegasuses. You can expand your learning channels, find Pegasus and write his name underneath the picture, all sorts of things. All of this instructional sequence focused on the response dimensions that were critical to the behavior that we're trying to learn, right? And so you want to go on and continue to expand independent responding. Basically, what I want to kind of get you guys to start to think about a little bit and learn about more in your behavior analytic careers and profession is think about prompting less. Prompts, really, that darker arrow is on the response. When we're prompting, often focusing on trying to get the right response. Learn a bit more about priming, which focuses on the stimulus-response relationship to guide the response, okay? It potentiates guidance by the target stimuli. It's really, really fascinating stuff. Here, I'm going to go back to antecedent instructional control, just that big umbrella of antecedents. Here's some research. McComas and colleagues did a functional analysis and determined escape is the consequence maintaining a disruptive behavior. Then they went through some various treatments where they had escape alone, and then escape paired with, so escape alone contingent on the behavior, the correct behavior, or escape plus clear instructional antecedents. And it was the condition that with clear instructional antecedents paired with escape, even though we knew escape was presented or available in both conditions, is the condition with the clear instructional antecedents that had the greater impact on the desired behavior. So Maya, same thing. She started to set up her classroom for success. She had classroom rules, schedules posted, really worked on making sure antecedents were clear, that the behaviors, the prerequisite behaviors in her learners' repertoires, all of those things. So now we're on very quickly to number 4, superpower number 4. We're moving into halfway through. Active student responding. This is critical. Resby, I think many of us, Corolla, many of us know, and most of you are familiar with Bill Heward of Cooper, Heron, and Heward. He and his students have done a wealth of research on active student responding, and that is increasing or enhancing achievement through making sure there are lots of meaningful opportunities to respond with consequences. So I'm going to show another video. What I want you guys to do is I want you to count how many opportunities to respond there are in this video. Okay, so again, your task is to watch this video and count how many opportunities to respond. And this will be the last video. So hopefully I'm going to play the right one. You guys ready? You're going to count how many opportunities to respond.
Olympia, Washington. Olympia, Washington. Salem, Oregon. Salem, Oregon. Carson City, Nevada.
Okay, so including that last one that I cut off a little bit on the video, and stream. Oh wait, no, that's not what I want to do. How do I get back to? Oh, it went back. Okay, sorry. So I asked you to count how many opportunities to respond. So go ahead and put in the chat how many opportunities to respond do you think happened in that video, including that very last one that I cut off. About the capital of Nevada. So go ahead and type in the chat. And then also, some of you, if you want to type in the chat, in a typical classroom, special needs, not special needs, college, it doesn't matter. In a classroom, how many, let me just actually tell you, that was 45 seconds. How many opportunities to respond do you think typically happen in 45 seconds? Or just, you can even round it up to a minute, okay? So I'm going to just look at some of your chats. It was all responding. I know that there's a bit of delay in between being able to type in the chat and me being able to see it. So go ahead and start. How many active student responses did you, or how many opportunities to respond did you see? I'm going to break it down for you. I've watched the video, this section of the video. It's part of a much longer video. I've watched this video numerous times. And during that clip, there were 17 state capitals said. So basically, while Tanya, the teacher, was tapping the map, whatever state she tapped on, the students had to state the state and the capital. So if you really think about it, there were three behaviors. One, they had to identify the state that she was tapping on. So one, say the correct state, and then state the correct capital. So correct state itself, the state name, and then the capital. And so the location, state, capital. There were 17 of those. If we think about those three behaviors, 17 or 18, excuse me, times 3 is 54. The teacher modeled, you saw that, my turn, your turn. So she modeled 3, including that cutoff state. So there were only 2 behaviors within that modeling. It was being able to correctly imitate, while she was touching the right state, correctly imitate the state and the capital. Take those 6 plus the 54, that's 60. But let's think about this. There wasn't just one child in the classroom. There were honestly probably over 20, but let's just say there are 20 kids in that classroom. So that's 60 responses times 20 kids in 40 seconds. That's 1,200 responses in 45 seconds. Or basically, her opportunity to respond rate was 27 per second. If that's not active responding and active learning, it's hard to kind of really know what is. But that is the power. Did you see how fluent those kids were? It was phenomenal. And that is part of the power of active student responding. Oh, there. So active student responding, we know there's core responding, which we just saw a video of, response cards, guided notes, structured worksheets. There's fluency building activities, class-wide peer tutoring, TAPS programs, computer software that increases active student responding. It's just a huge domain, a wonderful research base already, and a wonderful area for further research. So active student responding, one of our superpowers. We're going to do it right now. Again, Razmi and family, Corolla, if you can get on mic, I'm definitely going to need some oral responding on this. I know there's a delay. Basically, I'm going to put up a sentence, and then I want you to, when I snap, if hopefully you can hear it or at least see it, when I snap, you're going to say the word that is occasioned by that stimuli. So sometimes soda is called pop. Pop. Very good. Pop. Yep. We're going to try that again and get you guys responding on signal. Sometimes soda is called pop. Excellent. Here's the next. Let's just make sure we're going to go on a roll now. I'm going to go through all of them. Sometimes soda is called pop. Good. A red sign with 6 signs says stop. Excellent. To clean the floor, use a broom or a mop. Excellent. David's parents had 3 kids. Snap, crackle, and pop. David's parents 3 kids. All right. So just a fun little activity. Thank you guys for playing along. And we didn't prep this. I didn't prime them to they were actually under other types of stimulus control than the vocal antecedent. They were under a combined set of stimulus control, the vocal antecedent and their response history ending with OP words. My point is, one, to have some fun with choral responding, but show that it's really can be a very complex procedure, and you can teach lots of different things and think about behavior differently, even under a procedure that we think is so simple as choral responding. But with choral responding or any other active student responding, just remember clear directions, thinking time if necessary, clear signal for responding so you get everyone together, provide feedback on the majority of the responses, randomly call on students or teams, keep that lively pace. Again, Maya's doing a lot of active student responding with her kids. She asked them what are the critical features of active student responding, and they know that it's the signal, the pace of instruction, good feedback, all of that's important. We don't have enough time. I was going to do another call responding with everyone. You guys are so good typing in. Love it. I'm going to do another call responding on these vocabulary words. I was going to, but instead I'm just going to very quickly have you guys look at these vocabulary words. Just to make sure you have enough time to look at them, I'm going to read them to you. Write, pages, letter, school, study, reading, stories, sheets, note, pen, pencil, eraser, paper, words. We would have done that as call responding. I could have done it by line. I could have done it by word. I could have done it with all the words that start with the letter P, whatever it may be under that same array. All right? Everybody's seen the vocabulary words. Okay. A little bit of data. Here's behavior occurring, the frequency of behavior under an active student responding, the effective response cards on disruptive behavior. When the response cards were in place, active responding both increased and disruptive behavior decreased. Again, one of numerous, a whole cadre of studies around the importance of active student responding. Maya, as we know from the very beginning, that was an amazing change for her, getting her and her students engaged, everyone responding on signal, everyone practicing together. And again, a lot fewer disruptions. On to superpower number 5, measurement. I love measurement. Measurement should be a hallmark of any behavior analytic program, any behavior analytic practice, and any behavior analyst repertoire. So it's an essential component of any piece. If you guys have a moment, we're going to go through this quickly. So if you can type in the chat something that you've measured today, this week, or this year. Razmi, what have you measured?
Social validity.
Social validity. Ever the behavior analyst. Very, very, very good. Okay. Some of us may have measured those types of things. Other of us may have measured how much flour to put into the pancakes we're going to make for breakfast. Here's another thing. I want you guys to look at this because we're so smart and we anticipate what's going on. What do you guys type in the chat? I'm going to let people type before I ask Carola what she thinks this says. Go ahead and type in the chat if you guys have screen time was measured. That's great. So, Carola, I'm going to pick on you this time. What do you think it says underneath that yellow banner?
Cool. Nei, it's good. Tror man jo. Det er innlysende, men det er ikke det det står. Cool.
Oh, you're thinking. Anybody else? People are typing ice cream is good. That is excellent. That is what I was thinking people would happen because humans are subject to bias. We have an expectancy or belief about certain things, even when that's not what they actually are. Right? This is what happens with humans. We just tend to fill in incomplete objects. This is just a well-researched field on perception outside of behavior analysis. Here's another question back to you. So we just did less than 5 minutes ago, vocabulary words. You read them and I read them to you. So think back. Which of these were our vocabulary words? Thanks, you guys. You're typing in what you've measured. Go ahead and now type in, of these, which ones were our vocabulary words that we just covered 5 minutes ago that you read and that I read to you? Any of our people on microphone want to volunteer a response?
Class and pencil and school.
Class and pencil and school, says Razmi. Carola, anything? Carl, I'm going to move on just to show you that really just two, pencil and school, were on our vocabulary list. This is because, not because Razmi's wrong, it's just because memory is fleeting, right? That we want to remember things, or we may not even think about remembering things, but it's actually fleeting and cannot be relied upon. And you can influence memory. There's a whole area of study about that. And even your vocabulary can influence memory. And so there was a class, I didn't specify this stimulus class as being school related. You guys might have assumed that by the prior vocabulary list. And so therefore, in this new list, anything that was also related to school was at strength for being part of this vocabulary list when it wasn't. So remember, memory is fleeting. And we as humans can't help but have our own personal bias. Do you guys think there are 3 or 4 bars on this page?
Yeah.
Right? We can't help but have our own personal bias. And agreed upon measures that we can, once we define behavior, agreeing how we measure them helps reduce that bias and helps differentiate from that fleeting, the fact that what we try to remember is fleeting and malleable. So remember, bias and influence promotes faulty evidence. We need real evidence. We need hard evidence, because faulty evidence means inaccurate information, wasted time, lack of effect, and even potential harm. So measurement helps reduce that by promoting objectivity, no subjectivity. You get social validity, corroboration, reliability, and our observer agreement. Basically, you move away from opinion. You get public evidence. You get public scrutiny. You don't have to have personal confirmation or personal bias. In behavior analysis, we have a number of direct measures, continuous observation, direct measures meaning continual observation and recording of the behavior without a filter, without interference. And also in our field, we have some indirect measures. It's kind of direct observation, but we have a filter or a bias because we only look at some samples, not all instances of behavior. Or maybe it requires an estimate or an inference, or it's based on somebody's report. So direct measures versus indirect measures. Just want you to go ahead. Count occurrences. Again, I'm going to go quickly just because of time. Count occurrences. When you count the occurrences of something happening, the number of times I snap my fingers, is that a direct measure or an indirect measure?
Direct.
Direct, exactly. Time sampling, is that a direct or an indirect measure? Ooh.
It's also
Razmi, what did you say?
direct.
Ooh, okay. Razmi says also direct. I hate to contradict a dear friend, but PowerPoint is going to move this. Oops. Under indirect. Now, why do I and some others refer to, and Razmi really had to think about this one. Time sampling is because we're only looking at behavior in a portion of an observational interval. So we're only looking at a sample of those behaviors and then projecting or estimating based on that sample what the whole interval might look like. And so really it's a little bit of an inferential measure, even though we are directly looking at the behavior during the sample period. Rating scales, I'm going to go on, that's easy. We know that that's indirect. We're taking some proxy for behavior and we're trying to then add another proxy about how we feel about it or what its rating may be. In behavior analysis, we have a number of direct measures and a number of inferential or indirect measures, non-direct measures. There are 3 that I just want to point out because we use them a lot. Trials to criterion, we might think is a direct measure, but it's really not a direct measure because it's a derived measure, because it reflects like efficiency learning related to an imposed standard. And one of our criterion might be different from someone else's criterion. So there are variables that could change. Same thing for numbers of objective met. And my personal bailiwick, if I have a bone to pick with measurement in our field, it's the fact that so many of us rely on percent correct, which is truly an indirect influential measure of behavior. It does not really represent behavior in real time. Anytime you can get away from percent correct and instead even present opportunities and corrects or whatever, corrects and incorrects, whatever it may be, please do that over percent correct. Maya thought back to some of the classes that she took and remembered a quote by Johnson and Pennypacker. The question we ask determines how we measure. How we measure determines what we see, and what we see determines how we behave. Measurement is crucial to us. So some of us may think about seeing. We may see the word seeing in this red blob. Seeing may be believing, but measuring is knowing. Behavior analysts measure. We measure behavior. Right? Here's a very, very quick graph just showing event recording. Even something as simple as event recording can yield really important data about what is going on with behavior and the contingencies around it. Maya started using data. She started questioning. She stopped questioning who was learning, and instead looking at the simple data, tallying correct responses, tracking behavior trends. It didn't take a lot of time, but it soon became very clear that she knew her students better than she knew them before she collected data. Number 6, database decisions, making timely evidence-based decisions to support learner progress. We are not going to do this activity. We were going to do a choral responding about labeling this parts of the graph. I'm just going to go through it real quick because I know everyone on here is very familiar, graphs their data all the time and is very familiar with the parts of the graph. Just want to remind us, and all of this again are in your slides. You can play around with it if you want. Data tell a story. Here's a story about some learner learning to say Dolch sight words or words by sight reading, not by sounding out. Met criteria, moved on. Same thing, data. We can tell a story about this boy that perhaps didn't like math very much because he wasn't successful, and then the tool skills, he began to make more positive statements about math. When we think about data, we need to, or measurement, and database decisions, we need to think about formative assessment, formative because it helps form our opinion on what to do next. If we think about even traveling on a map, right? Formative assessment, where are we now? How many more miles? How far do we need to go? What do I need to do next to do this better? What's the shortest way to get there? What's the best route? What's the next landmark? Do we need more petrol? More food, water? All of those help you make decisions in real time, as opposed to assessment. It's also important, but it's after you've taught and you're evaluating in hindsight what happened. Did we make it? What was our miles per gallon? Did we stop too many times along the way? Whatever it may be, just know that analyzing the data is critical. So you want to analyze the data. If everything's fine, then you continue. If you're analyzing the data and there's a change needed, then you think about, is the change needed because criteria is met, we move on to the next objective? Or is the change needed because there's inadequate progress and we need to make some database decisions about how to intervene? Either way, we analyze the data and do the whole thing again. Lots of publications and research around database decisions. Here's just one more example. Our last, Maya used database decisions to adjust her instructions early and often. Our last tool skill, our last superhero skill is fluency. I would have had you think type, words associated with fluent. Most people put in things like automatic, easy to do, without thinking, quick, things like that. Here's some data about why I have one set of data representing my bugaboo with percent correct. Here are 3 groups of learner participants. The X are residents of a state school with intellectual disabilities. The open square are preschoolers, or not preschoolers, elementary students age 5 through 7. And the darkened in circle are adults. And so if you can barely see it, but across the top are behaviors like writing numbers, naming pictures, rote counting. And you could see all these 3 populations got 100% correct. We can say all of these populations can count a fixed number of tiles, or can write the numbers by ones, or whatever it may be. They all got 100% correct. However, if we look at rate, the performance is actually very, very different. You can see the typical professional adults perform these skills most often always at a higher rate, sometimes even more higher than in the other population. You can see our residents with developmental disabilities did this at a much slower rate. So if you think about it, if you have a waiter taking your order, they may get your order accurate, but if it takes them 15 minutes to write down your order, you wouldn't say that behavior is really a part of their repertoire or a fluent part of their repertoire. So thinking back, Maya thought about Skinner. Skinner talked about how rate of responding is the principal measure of the strength of an operant. So don't let us as a field, as a science, get away from rate. There's a whole area that focuses in behavior analysis, adjacent to behavior analysis, that focuses on rate, called precision teaching. A lot of excellent teaching ideas and ways to think about teaching and learning that come out of precision teaching. They teach to fluency. They have rate aims. All of us working with younger kids or kids with motor difficulties really ought to look into the big 6+6, which is actually getting these skills, twisting, pulling, pitching, waving, tapping, to fluency before we start doing other things. All of this feeds into us being able to do a component composite analysis, where we break down big skills like calculus or the language of equations, all the way down to, can you pick up a pencil fluently? All of those are important in this whole behavioral chain. You can think about building fluency by freeing up the operant. Definitely look up Lindsley's work on freeing up the operant, rather than holding up a triangle, red star and green circle and saying, point to the red star. How about putting all of them out there and saying, point to all red, pick up all the red, give me all the red, cross out all the red, whatever it may be. Think about freeing up the operant, time it, see if you can get behavior under a good rate, because fluent performance helps. Fluent performance has lots of outcomes to it in terms of being able to remember things for longer periods of time, maintaining behaviors. Fluent performance, these are all some strategies or things to look up around fluent performance. Got to put in a standard acceleration chart. Won't go into the detail, but as you start to look at rate-based behaviors, building fluent performance and precision teaching, you're going to become familiar with a standard acceleration chart. Maya did a lot of this practice till it's effortless in her classroom. So just as a very quick summary, here are the 7 superpowers again. Kind of think about them. Think about your own fluency. What is your rate? What is your fluent performance in these 7 superpowers? How strong are they? And mostly, I want to thank you. We made it through on time. So thank you very much. Razmi, I don't know if we have like 2 minutes time for questions, or how you want to go from here, but phew, we did it, you guys.
Did it?
Fluency-based instruction.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
There are some questions.
All right.
How permanent products is direct? I don't really know how that is a question.
Well, I think it's a good, because I did put permanent product under a direct measure, but really permanent product involves some of the other pieces. Like if it's number of pieces of litter picked up out of a park, and the permanent product then is looking at the pieces of litter in the garbage bag, you're still adding frequency or counting, but it's a direct contact with the behavior of interest with no missing components. So that is why that's why it gets put under the direct measures. And I think, and you guys are going to get the slides. I'm going to email them to Behavior Live as soon as we're done. But I think it's chapters 5, 6, and 7 in Cooper, Heron, and Hewitt. And they go into a really wonderful section about direct versus indirect or inferential measures of behavior.
Fantastic. I don't see any more questions at the moment. If you have some questions, we still have a few minutes left, guys. So just put it in the questions section and we'll answer straight away.
Oh, and all this time I forget to mention that little QR code that's up there now. It was on all the other slides, but it's it'll give you a list of resources and research for all of these 7 superpowers. And this will also be part of the Behavior Live site. So that will be included. So, and everyone, you guys are very, very welcome. Yep. And thanks for the compliment on the time management. So, all right.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you for a wonderful hour. Oh, my guys, they want to do the QR code. So
okay. Well, you were very welcome, Razmi and Corolla and EABA. Thank you for inviting me, and everyone, thanks for joining in. That was fun. It was really fun. I appreciate it.
For those of you who are growing the CEUs, be a little patient. Usually the program needs a few minutes before you can click the leave button or the conclude the session, but you will get there. Thank you for attending. I hope to see you either at one of the many conferences around the world, and in Europe especially. We have a conference next year in Romania, in Bucharesti, and EABA has one now this coming November in Lisbon.
Yes.
Lisboa.
Yes.
Hope to see you all there. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
Go.
All right, I'm going to sign off, Razmi.
I'm not sure we're out yet.